Hi, welcome to another installment of Linux Terminal Love. My name is Vince, and this is a series of videos I'm doing of tips and tricks for the Linux terminal. Now, I fully understand that using the terminal is not exactly everyone's cup of tea. However, if you can feel a bit more comfortable using the terminal, a bit more confident, then if there are usually any troubles that you run into when trying out different Linux distributions or fixing your own one, most of the solutions are provided in terminals, so it's good to know how to use it well and feel comfortable using it. These are just tips and tricks that I use myself that I've discovered, making all this more fun to use. What I thought I might discuss today is something that I'd done in the past, and that is to customize my bash prompt. Now, to show you what I mean by this, the first thing we need to do is bring up a terminal. This is your bash prompt. Now, a lot of different distros will have some sort of a different take on how it should look. This is the default way that Arco Linux shows it, and I've got to say it looks boring, and sometimes I find it hard to discern different sections of it. So that's your username, that's the name of my computer, this part here is the current directory I'm working in. You can actually customize your prompt in many different ways. You can first of all change what information is shown. Secondly, you can change the coloring of it. And thirdly, you can even add little cool effects like flashing and blinking effects. So how can we go about doing this? The first way I'm going to show you is the easiest, and it's done via this website that I found. It's produced by a guy by the name of Josh Matthews. Looks like a number of years ago, but it still works very well, so hey. And it's very simple. It's called Easy Prompt. I'll leave the link in the notes down below, and it's a simple matter of just pointing and clicking. So let's decide what we want to include in our bash prompt first. So it's usually a nice idea to have your username, for example. Secondly, you might want to put an @ symbol, and that's usually found in the extra command characters section. There's our @ symbol. And we might then want to put in our host name. And if you want to follow this sort of way of doing things, then you'd want to also add your current directory. There are two different ways of adding your directory. One is to show the full path to that directory. The other way is to just show the last folder in that full path of the directory to show you exactly where you are. I find it's generally enough to just show the current directory as that. Lastly, you might want to add the $ symbol to show that you're at a command prompt. Now, below you can see what it might look like. My first impressions of that, it looks like a little bit squashed together. So we might want to add some spacing. That's usually in extra characters, and that should be our space character. Now it's added that to the end there, but I think you can just drag and move it around. So we might want to put a space there, and we'll add another one, and we might want to put another space between the directory and the host name. There you go. That looks a bit better. Now there are all these other different characters you can add to just differentiate the different elements you have in your bash prompt. There are a few other things you can add. So you can add the last error code of the command that you ran. You can add even the time and the date. So let's, for example, add the date. Now let's put it at the end there, but I don't like it there. Maybe we'll put it just before the space there. There you go. Maybe that still doesn't look quite right. Let's put it before the current directory. There we are. But it might just need another space. So there. That looks like something I might want to use. There's only still just one problem. It's all still in white text on a black background. So to colorize the text, it's quite simple. We select the part that we want, and here you'll see options for coloring the foreground and the background. Now, this website only seems to give you a few options. However, I'll show you a bit later how to add more colors for your prompt. So let's, for example, with the username, we'll make it stand out, so yellow. And we select the next element, which is the @ symbol. We'll make that, for example, blue. And I might want to keep the host name also blue as well to be consistent. The date, we can, maybe let's do a background color for the date. We'll make that purple. The directory, I think I might be happy to leave that white, and the dollar symbol, I might leave that white as well. Next step is to then take the code that this website has generated and put it into your bash rc file. Your bash rc file is usually located in your home directory in most Linux distributions, and what it does is it provides for all the settings that you want in your terminal each time you open it up, and you can also have commands that run automatically each time you open up your terminal. So many times you may have seen people open up the terminal and it shows a near fetch screen, which is like a systems information screen. Well, in this same file you can also change some of the elements of your bash prompt. So to edit your bash rc file, we first of all need to open your text editor of choice, and you can either do that in a terminal based text editor like Nano, or maybe like me, you prefer a graphical one, so I usually use Genie. We'll open up Genie, and we'll open, and we'll go to our home folder. Now, the bash rc file is usually a hidden file, as shown by the fact that it has a dot at the start of it. If your file manager doesn't show it initially, so it might look more like this in your home folder, it just means you need to show your hidden files, and in most cases if you press Ctrl H it'll appear. So for me, I just select my .bash rc file. There we are. And oops, I nearly forgot one important thing. It's probably a good idea usually when you're editing text files and configuration files to probably create a backup of that file first. Now there's an easy way of doing that. Normally I'll just do that in terminal, so I would say use a copy command of my .bash rc file to back up to maybe bash rc .bak for backup. There we go. Hopefully that is there now. There, I've got a backup of my bash rc file, so I can edit away, safe in the knowledge that if I make a big mistake, a big boo-boo, I can copy the backup file back to my normal bash rc, and hopefully that will fix any problems that I might have. Now, the next thing we need to do is locate where the PS1 variable is. In my bash rc file, it's right here. Ignore this because these are my own customizations I'd made to my bash rc file previously, but for the purposes of this video, I'm using the default Arca Linux one initially to show you what it looked like before. But here, if we go back to the website we've got and copy what code that it generated and paste it into the variable here, then we save it. Now, to then show you the changes that we've made, we can do a number of things. We may need to close the terminal that we've got currently open and then reopen it again, and once we reopen the terminal, it'll run this file and use these current settings. But there is another way of doing it, and that is to run the command source bash rc from your home folder. There you go. We've made some changes and customized our bash prompt. Now, of course, you can go through this website again and make whatever changes that you like, copy the code back into your bash rc file, save, and use the source.bashrc command to see how it looks. Now, you can absolutely customize your bash prompt to your heart's content. Something that you might find useful is, rather than using this website, you can simply go ahead and edit all this code here. But to understand this code first, you might need to understand what some of these special characters mean. So I've made a little list here, which I might paste into the show notes below. But there are plenty of other special characters to add. But these are the commonly used ones. So your /u is your username, and that's put in here. And your /h is your host name, and you can see that here. Your /t are your times. We have a /d here, which presumably means date, but I didn't include it in my list here. And we also have a /w here that is for our current directory, which is just because it's a capital W, the base folder of the path. You can even add things like a new line. What's also important to remember is some of these other special characters that are in here, and you can see that those ones are here. What these are useful for are putting in code into your prompt variable that don't print, and a key example of these are color codes. Now, I mentioned before that on this website some of the coloring options are a bit limited. There are actually many more options you can use, and there is this little guide here that shows you all the different types. What's important to remember is sometimes these coloring options are limited by the type of terminal that you're using. So here I'm using the XFCE terminal, and that has usually quite a wide variety of compatibility, but some other terminals may not. In our little example here, it appears that we're using, so this here is your color code. It appears that we're using a 16 color format. And what I notice here in my example is that my colors seem a little dull, and I might want to change that. So for example, if I wanted a brighter green or yellow color, I might want to choose this one. Say for example, let's go a 92 green here, this one here. Let's do that. And for my @ symbol and host name, I might want to choose a brighter blue. So for example, maybe this one here. We'll use a 96. Let's choose that one. And I think this one we need to change as well. And let's try that. So we need to save it, and to refresh our bash prompt, we run the source.bashrc command again, and we can simply press the up arrow because that's the last command that I ran. That looks a little better, a bit easier to read for me. So going back to my little cheat sheet that I've got here, there are actually other things we can add. Something that I found very interesting was that you can actually add the output of any command into your bash prompt. And the way you do that is by enclosing whichever command you like, whichever terminal command you like, in the little grave accents here. Now, I was initially tripped up because when I was reading the tutorial I was referring to, I thought they were single quotes, but no, it's actually the grave symbol, which is on my keyboard is located above the little squiggly line that usually means your home folder. So this little squiggly line here, and on my keyboard that's next to my number 1 key at the top row of the keyboard. So if there are any details that you would like to include in your bash prompt, but they're not easily accessible by some of the special characters that are already available, then you can use this little tip to add them. So let's try that actually, shall we? What I might try and do is I'll edit the file we'll have open here, and let's put it after our directory. Sometimes I might like to know what kernel of Linux I'm running, so what you can do is here you do a grave accent, add in the command that we want. In this situation I'll do a uname -r, close it off with another grave accent, save it, and let's hope this works. We'll do another source.bashrc command. Bingo! That's pretty neat, right? So I got most of my information for this video from this website here, from How to Geek. There are other resources available as well, but this is the one that I mainly used, and it seemed quite helpful, so I'll link it down below as well. Now you can fiddle around with your bash prompt in whichever way you like. There is just one little tip I would leave you with as well. You may recall that in my previous video I was having trouble with my command prompt and the cursor going back and forth to the start of the line. I realized that the reason for this was I had made some mistakes in my earlier customization of my bash prompt. What I hadn't been doing with the color coding was including the escape characters for non-printing parts of the prompt. That's these ones here, which is the slash square bracket open and the slash close brackets. So this one, slash square bracket open and slash close bracket open. Now you actually need to enclose your color codes with these brackets, otherwise some of the formatting can be a bit weird. That's it for me for this video. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments or suggestions, if you have any commands or tips you'd like me to cover in the future, please leave them in the comments below. Bye for now.